Hello everyone, today in this video I am going to deal with the remaining part of the first chapter of Flamingo of class 12th. The title of the chapter is The Last Lesson, written by Alphonse Daudet. In the first part we have seen that France has lost in the battle, and as a result the district of Lorraine and Alsace will pass into the hand of Germany. And Germany has passed a rule that French will no longer be taught in the school of Lorraine and Alsace. And as a result, Mr. M. Hamel will have to leave the district, and therefore he is delivering his last lesson. In the classroom, everyone, the villagers, the students and the teacher, all are sitting in a very serious manner. They are serious, they are sad, they are remorseful, because from the next day French will no longer be taught in the province of Alsace and Lorraine. And during that lesson, Mr. Hamel, he asked question to the narrator. He asked him about the participles, he asked him to recite the rules of participles which he has taught them, which he had taught them in the previous class. But the narrator, he was very sad and he never paid attention to the class. He never did homework. He was always busy in playing, and today he was sorrowful. From the core of the heart he wanted to deliver the answer. He wanted to answer the question asked by Mr. M. Hamel, but he failed. He got confused and he was not able to answer the question asked by Mr. M. Hamel. So let's see how Mr. M. Hamel responded, or how he reacted, or what he said to the narrator, whose name is French, when he failed to answer the question asked by him in the last lesson. I heard M. Hamel say to me, "I won't scold you, little French. You must feel bad enough." So when the narrator was not able to reply, he was not able to answer the question asked by M. Hamel, then he told to the narrator that today he is not going to scold him. Why he said so? Because he could sense that the narrator, he was himself feeling very bad for it. And therefore the teacher, as he was also very sad, he said that today he is not going to scold. He is not going to rebuke, he is not going to say a single word to the narrator. See how it is, every day we have said to ourselves, "Bah, I have plenty of time, I will learn it tomorrow." Then the teacher says that every day, what we do? We have the escapist tendency, we keeps delaying the things for the other day. We always keep the things for the other day. We never do the things on the right time, and we always keep saying the same thing, that is, I have enough of time, I will do it the next day. There is no need to hurry. I have plenty of time, it can be done even the next day. So here he also wants to give a message to the students that we should never keep on delaying the things, but we should do the things on the same assigned day, as the other day never comes. Therefore, instead of keeping the things for the other day, we should always do the things, we should learn the things on the same very day on which it has been assigned. As it is said, time past is time lost, and lost time is never found again. And now you see where we have come out. And that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. He says to French, he is not only referring to French, but he is referring to the people of Alsace. He said that this is the problem with the people of Alsace, not only French, but everyone is to be blamed for this. Everyone have the same tendency. What tendency they have? They keep the things for the other day. They never do or never learn the things on that very day. They have the skipist attitude. So this is the problem, not only with French but all people of Alsace. Now those fellow out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchman and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? So now here he says those fellows. Those fellows refers to the Prussian soldiers. He said that the Prussian soldiers, they will have right to say what they will say and why they will have right to say. That is being explained over here. He says that you people, being a native of France, you don't even know your mother tongue. You don't know how to read and write your mother tongue. Then definitely you will be rebuked, you will be mocked, you will be made fun by those Prussian soldiers. That if you are not able to read or write or speak your own mother tongue, then how come it is possible or how you say that you are a Frenchman? Again he gives a very strong message over here. He tries to say that we should have a good command, not even good command, then at least we should have the knowledge of our mother tongue. Mother tongue is not only a language, but it's the identity of that particular country, of that particular area. Therefore, we should never ignore our mother tongue. So the importance of mother tongue is being highlighted over here. But you are not the worst, poor little French. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. So he continues to say that you are not only to be blamed for this. All people of Alsace is to be blamed for it. We all have the same attitude. We never give due respect to our native language, to our mother tongue. We keep ignoring it. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at mills so as to have little more money. So now, in the previous paragraph, as he has said that not only French or not only the student is to be blamed for it, but everyone is to be blamed for it. And here he says about the parents. He says that your parents were not worried, you were not serious about your study. And therefore, he never paid attention toward your studies. Instead, what he did? He sent you to work on farm or on the mills. Why? To get some extra money, to earn some extra money. So this is how he blamed the parents, that even the parents is responsible. If a student fails or a student is not able to learn something, or a student fails to learn something, then not only teachers, not only student, even the parents is to be blamed for it. So he says that his parents was not anxious, he was not worried, he was not sincere about the study of his child, and therefore instead of asking him to study, he sent him to work on farm or on mills. And I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? So again, he is blaming himself as well. He has not only blamed the parents, but he is blaming himself also. He says that even I am to be blamed for it. Why? Because even I have not taught you so sincerely. I have sent you. Here he says that I have not often. He says that very often I used to send you to water my plants. I asked my student to water my plant instead of teaching them, instead of keeping them in the classroom. I sent them off the classroom to water the plants, and as a result they were not able to learn. They wasted their time, they were in the garden, and therefore they were not able to learn. And then he says that even sometimes he has suspended the class even. For what? For fishing. Whenever he wanted to go for fishing, he has even cancelled the class, and this is how even he is to be blamed. And through this paragraph, the author, he wants to highlight the responsibility of the parents as well as of the teachers. Then from one thing to another, Hamel went on to talk of French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. So Mr. Hamel, he was very sad, he was unhappy, and he has a lot of things to say that day. And therefore he was continuously speaking out, he was giving a sort of monologue. He was continuously speaking his heart out to the students and the villagers present in the classroom. Now, he is talking about French language. He says that it is the most beautiful language in the world. And he says that it is very clearest. It is the clearest language and most logical. So as it is clearest and it is logical, definitely it would be very easy to learn. And therefore what he says, that as it is our mother tongue, it is the clearest language and it is one of the best language of this world. Therefore we are the one, being the native of France, it's our responsibility to guard it, to protect it, to save it. And how we can protect it, how we can save it? By speaking, by learning. This is how we can guard our language. Because when people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. So then he gives the reason that why we should guard our language, why we should protect our language. Then he continues to say, he says that suppose if you are enslaved, you are made slave. So till the time you possess your language, you possess your mother tongue, your native language, till then there is some hope, there will lie some hope for you to be free from that slavery, from that prison. So till the last moment we should hold fast to their language, to our language. It means till the moment we have our language with us, we have our mother tongue with us, we are free. And that language only, our mother tongue only, will help us to get out of that slavery. That mother tongue will not only serve as a language, but it will serve as a key to that prison, or it will serve as a support or encouragement to get out of that slavery. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. So after that, Mr. Hamel, he read a grammar lesson to the student. He taught a grammar topic to the students. And the narrator, he says that day he was surprised. Why he was surprised? Because that day, whatever was taught to him, he understood it very well. He found it very easy to understand it that day. And he found it very easy. And then he says that why it was so? Because he listened it very carefully. And he found change in attitude, a change in attitude of Mr. Hamel even. He says that earlier he never explained the chapter with such a great patience. So today he concentrated on what was being taught in the classroom, and even the teacher, he explained that lesson very minutely and very patiently, and as a result he found it very easy to understand. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away, and to put it all into our head at one stroke. So that day, it seemed to the narrator that Mr. M. Hamel, his French teacher, he wanted to give all, he wanted to share everything, he wanted to teach everything to his student all at once, whatever he knew. Why? Why he had that attitude that day? Because he knew that from the next day he will never be able to teach French to anyone. So therefore, that was the final day for him to teach French, and therefore he was in hurry to teach them as much as he could. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day M. Hamel had new copies for us written in a beautiful round hand, France Alsec, France Alsec. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desk. So after finishing the grammar, he taught a lesson in writing. And that day Mr. M. Hamel, he gave a new copies to his students. And in that new copy, what was there? In a beautiful round handwriting, on the top of that sheet, the paper which he has given to the student, on the top of it, there were little flags, and there it was written France Alsec, France Alsec. And that sheet, the paper which was distributed by him to the students, it was given to each and every student sitting in the classroom. So therefore it seemed to the narrator that the flag of France is being posted or is flaring throughout the classroom. So here you can see in this picture, this is the flag of France. So a small flags were there around the seat which was distributed by Mr. M. Hamel to the students, and there on that seat it was written France Alsec, France Alsec. So it was, that seat was on each and every desk of the classroom, therefore it seemed the flag of France is being hoisted throughout the classroom, is flaring in the classroom everywhere. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of pens over the paper. So that day when the assignment was assigned to the student and some writing work was given to them, everyone was very quiet. Not a single noise was to be heard in the class that day. Everyone was concentrating on the work which was assigned to them. The narrator says he could only hear the scratching of the pens, that is, the sound which is produced when you write on a sheet of paper. So only that sound was prevalent in the classroom. The students can listen to those sounds only. Apart from that, there was pin drop silence in the classroom. There were no other sound produced that day. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest ones, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. Then he says that day, beetles is insects, fly. The beetles came into the classroom, and you might have noticed that whenever a fly or insects come into the classroom, the student starts panicking or they start playing, they get restless. But that day, when insects flew into the classroom, when fly came into the classroom, no one paid attention to it. Not even the littlest ones. Here, littlest ones refers to the pigeons. There were pigeons sitting on the ceiling of the classroom, and what they were doing, right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French. Here, fish hooks refers to the paws of pigeons. There, on the paws of pigeons, there used to be nails, and that nails used to be like fish hook. So what they are doing, they are scratching the wood with the help of that fish hook, like projection which is there on the paws of the pigeon, and that is producing a sound. And here the narrator, he has compared that sound to French. So that day, even that sound seemed to him as if they are also doing the lesson when they are writing French, they are doing the writing work which is being assigned to the students by Mr. M. Hamel. So it means here he wants to say that even that day, even the pigeons were attending the class, even they were trying to learn, they were sincerely attending the class, the last lesson which was being given by Mr. M. Hamel. On the roof, the pigeon cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German? Even the pigeons. So when the class was going on, the pigeon cooed. Cooed is the sound of pigeons. So the narrator, when he heard the sound of pigeon, he compared himself to the pigeon. How he compared? That from the next day, they will be taught German. So it came to his mind that whether even the pigeons, it means the birds and all other living beings, whether even they would be taught German from the next day. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. So while the students were doing his work, while they were doing their work, Mr. M. Hamel, he was sitting in his chair and he was sitting motionless. Why he was motionless that day? Because he was very much sad. And what he was doing over there? He was gazing first at one thing and then at another. So he was continuously looking upon the things which were there in the classroom. Why he was doing so? Because he had been continuously teaching in that school for last 40 years, and therefore definitely he was attached to each and every brick and the grasses of that school. Therefore he was looking at it, he was gazing at it as if he wanted to fix it in his mind. He wanted to collect all those memory, and perhaps in his mind he would be lost in different thoughts, different memories which he had with that school. So today he wanted to collect all those memories as much as he could, so that from the next day when he would not be there, that memory will be enough for him, that will appease him, that will soothe him. Therefore he was continuously looking at each and everything which was present in that classroom. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him, just like that. So he says fancy. Fancy here, the narrator means to say that it is not a matter of joke. It's quite a serious thing. He has given 40 years of his life. It means he has given his whole life to that school. He had been in the same place, in the same school, serving that district. And throughout that 40 years, everything was same, everything was as it is. The garden was there outside the window, and there was a classroom in front of it. Only the desk and the benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and now the hope vine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. So the narrator says that nothing had changed. For last 40 years, everything was as it is. Only what had changed? The desk and benches. It has become smooth. When you use something continuously, then definitely it becomes smoother. So this is what he says, that only desk and bench, as has been used for last 40 years, therefore it has become smooth. Another changes which is there in that school campus, that is the walnut trees. The walnut trees has become taller, and the hope vine is a creeper plant which Mr. M. Hamel has himself planted it. So it has twined it is the creeper plant used to twine around the support whatever is being provided to them. So that creeper plant, that hope vine, has twined about the windows to the roof. So that creeper plant has climbed till the roof. So only these three changes has been brought in that school for last 40 years. Sorry. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man. To hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. Mr. Amhamel, who was residing in the same school on the first floor, and therefore the narrator, he could hear the movement of trunks, the luggage which were being packed by the sister of Mr. Amhamel as they had to leave the country next day. So the next day he will no longer be there in that district, in that school. Therefore, his sister is packing his belongings, so he will leave that district Alsek with bag and baggage the next day. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba, bi, bi, bo, bo. So that day, he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. It means that day he did not ignore any students. He heard answer from each and every students. And after writing, they had a lesson in history. Amhamel taught them history. And after that, the babies, it means the students, they chanted their ba, bi, bi, bo, bo. It's a phonetic sound. So they chanted in unison the different phonetic sound, different sounds as we have in English and Hindi. So similarly, they have different sounds in French also. So they chanted it, they recited it. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands spelled the letters with them. You could see that he too was crying, his voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remembered it, the last lesson. So when all the students had given answer, they have said their answer, they have given answer to the question asked by Mr. Amhamel. After that, old Hauser, who was sitting in the last bench of that classroom, he had his spectacles on his primer, the book which he was carrying. After that, even he read it out to the classroom. He read the primer in the classroom, and while he was reading, his voice was trembling. Why it was trembling? Because he was full of emotion. And when the students were listening to what Mr. Hauser was saying, they wanted to laugh and cry as well. Why they wanted to laugh? They wanted to laugh because it may be that he is an old man and he has not read French well during his school days, and therefore it may be that he would be pronouncing something wrong. But at the same time they wanted to cry as well because it was their last lesson. So everyone present in the classroom, they were full of emotion, they were very sad, and they were not able to control their emotion. So the narrator says that he remembered that last lesson very well. He will never forget that last lesson which he attended that day. Throughout his life, that last lesson will be there in his heart, and he will never be able to forget it. All at once the church clock struck 12. Then the Angelus, at the same moment, the trumpet of the Prussian returning from drill sounded under our window, and Hamel stood up, very pale in his chair. Here Angelus, what is Angelus? Angelus is prayer said in morning, in the middle of the day, and in the evening in the Roman Catholic Church. So each and every religion have their prayer. Similarly, while they were sitting in the classroom, at that moment the church clock struck 12. The bell started ringing, and that was an indication of Angelus, that is, it is the time for prayer. And at the same time, the Prussian soldiers, they were returning from their drill, from their daily exercise, and they were blowing the trumpet. Trumpet, it's a musical instrument, so even that sound can be heard under the windows of that school. So when Mr. M. Hamel heard it, he stood up. He was sitting in a chair, he stood up, and he was very pale. It means he was very sad. Pale is the color of the skin, particularly when you are very sad. I never see him look so tall. Then the narrator says that he has never seen him standing like that. How he was standing? In the posture. When you stand at once, when you are surprised, when you are taken aback, and then you stand, at that moment you will see that you have stretched your body a little bit extra. And at that moment you will see that person, the physical appearance definitely convey that the person is taken aback, is surprised about that particular things. My friend, said he, I. But something choked him. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with his might, he wrote as large as he could. So then he wanted to say something, but his voice choked. Choked, it means he was unable to speak because of strong emotion. He was remorseful. He was not able to control his emotion. And therefore, whatever he wanted to say, whatever final words he wanted to speak out to the class, to his students, he was not able to complete his statement. He started with I, but he was unable to complete it. Then what he did, he turned to the blackboard, he took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, with all his might, it means with all his strength, he was so grieved, bearing on with all his might, here it means that he was so grieved that even he could not walk. So with all his might, with all his strength, he just made a slight movement and he wrote something on the board as large as he could. So let's see what he wrote. Vive la France, which means long live France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed, you may go. So Mr. M. Hamel, he wrote on the board, long live France. And as we have seen in the previous paragraph, he was very much grieved. He was not able to speak out. He was not able to even move. Therefore, without uttering a single word, he wrote it on the board and he made a gesture with his hand. He made a sign to the students, and with his gesture, he said to the student that the school is dismissed, you may go. So this was the end of the last lesson, the lesson which was delivered by Mr. M. Hamel, and which will be the end of French language in the district of Alsace-Lorraine. So the theme of the story is the loss of mother tongue. We should always respect our mother tongue. We should have a due respect for it. As he has said, as Mr. M. Hamel has said, it's a key to the prison when you are enslaved. And that line is the crux of this story. The second message which he wants to give, that is to the students, teachers, and to all, that we should rise to the occasion, we should do the work assigned to us in the stipulated time. We should never delay the things. We should never keep it for the next day. This is all about the last lesson. This is all for today. See you in the next video.